You were on with Messrs. Matterface and Crook. And was it true? Well, it was true, because you came in with this when you said, what about Manchester United? Should it be Ten Hag in charge, or should it be Southgate in charge? This was Danny's response.
Gareth and Steve.
Why?
Well, I know them. I think they've come a long way, the pair of them. They've got a great partnership. I think what they've achieved at England, the way he's managed players, big players, I think has evolved into a very, very intelligent football manager. And with Steve by his side, I think they do a great job at a big club. What United need now isn't all about on the pitch. They'll be judged on that, but initially, what do United need? They need someone to bring together this squad and try and create a unity and an atmosphere and an energy that England have. I think that would be fair.
Gosh. So a week later.
Well said, sir.
So a week later, do you still stand by that?
Well, I was asked a question, as you heard there.
Yes.
Which one would I have?
Yes.
And I would better the devil you know for me, because I know Steve and I know Gareth, and I would have gone for them ahead of Ten Hag because he's an unknown quantity and he's a risk. But they'd both be risks at such a huge club as Manchester United. I also went on to say, of course, that if in an ideal world they were slow to act when Conte was available, they should have went for him. He was the ideal candidate for United and what they needed, I felt at the time. I think we all agreed on that. But yeah, I stand by it because, as I said there, I think there's something lacking at United that needs to be addressed before you even start talking about how would they play on the pitch and all that stuff.
What Danny is seeking to do is add nuance to a conversation. I mean, I assumed when I heard it that the sheriff's away and some renegade posse was being allowed to run ragged about observations. The qualification should be...
Who's the sheriff, by the way?
Jim.
Oh, right.
And
what are you?
the qualification... Oh, God only knows the guy with a rusty badge.
The budgie smuggler.
Yeah, you've got a problem with that.
Anyway, crack on.
The qualification, the answer to the question should have been neither. And Danny's gone beyond that. What he's seeking to do is reverse into a situation where he was given two choices. He then went on to say, I think he'd do a great job at a big club. So that's not about one choice. That's about a great job at a big club. So there's a multitude of big clubs that they can do a great job at. And there is no parallel universe today, tomorrow, whether he's your mate or not, right? And you like him and Steve Holland gives you information or whatever else, right? Whether the reality of it is that you can sit there and make a case for Gareth Southgate and Steve Holland to be in any parallel universe good enough to run a big six club. You can't make that case, Danny. You can make it if you want to, because if you want to get into the territory of being cronyistic in your thinking, but if you're really being honest about it, he's had a decent job at England because they've had more luck than any other. And you're going to say luck is a part of commodity, but luck is great. If the only commodity you've got is luck, you'll run out in the end. They've got a big boys draw now after the games in Qatar in the group stages. This is when we'll see England having to perform. But there's no parallel universe. First of all, if the two choices for Man United were Ten Hag and Southgate, and they're the only two choices, then you'd say, well, give me a bleeding bigger list rather than say I'll choose Southgate, because I'd be disappointed if that's the only list I can choose from.
Well, yeah,
and
but
secondly,
you always talk about being definitive with an answer and not sitting on the fence. I decided to give an answer and I'll stick by it.
But it's a poor answer. You're seeking to qualify the answer by saying I was only given an answer based upon two choices. But Man United would have more than two choices.
You wouldn't have Southgate managing a top six club?
No.
You don't think he's got the credentials to do it?
I don't.
When you say there's no argument, there is an argument based on the job he's done at England, because there's been many qualities that he's shown during that tenure. He's dealt with a lot of problems that even you've said on here, so you're contradicting yourself a bit, where you've admired his stance.
I think he's been very... No, hold on. I think there's two things. There's the football manager, and there's the public personality that talks common sense in the mainstream media about how people should perceive his players and how people should react to certain circumstances and how people should behave off the pitch and so on and so forth. Yep. And I think he's been very diplomatic in that. When I look at his body of work on the pitch, and there's no argument, getting to a semi-final of a tournament and getting to a final of a tournament needs to be applauded. But when you then say, right, okay, now give me that X factor that makes you win these situations, he hasn't got it. He doesn't have an alternative. He doesn't have the ability to be able to make decisions in the middle of a game to be able to change things. He manages like he plays. Very decent, respectable footballer that went on to carve out a very decent career at Crystal Palace and Aston Villa and play for England. But not one of those sort of stellar players that what you've got as a manager is a very safe pair of hands. But safe pair of hands doesn't win you tournaments. So we've seen it at moments in time in the Croatia World Cup semi-final where we needed to change. And we gave him a pass because it was new and it was fresh and it was ultimately a guy learning his trade. Go forward 3 years and you don't give him a pass because you learn the lessons. You've got to change it against Italy. You've got to do something. You don't change it. You change it after the outcome. After we've been smacked by the Italians to get back in the game, he then changes it. So I look at it and say, on a domestic level, you take Mancini out of Italy and go, yeah, I can see him in a top six club. Never, ever ever will Gareth Southgate get a top 6 manager's job in this country. Never.
Well, we'll see on
Never.
that. But if you look at teams gone by, what you're suggesting is that you only ever give a top six club a manager who's got tremendous CV in terms of winning stuff or being successful at club level, other clubs. Would that be your prerequisite?
I think it's hardly likely to get a top 6 job anywhere else.
Well, Pochettino got a job at Tottenham from Southampton, where he'd done nothing other than improve a few players and get a decent league position, and Espanyol, where they were near the bottom when he left, and they got relegated. Tottenham became a top 4 club in his tenure many times, if not nearly every season. Nearly won the league and got to the final of the Champions League.
But
what universe did Pochettino come from that we deserved that job?
Because you saw. Hold on, I'm going to answer that question, because you saw something at Southampton in terms of the resources that he had to work with against the outcomes that he produced.
You saw that in a year, did you?
Well, clearly, because what you saw manifested itself, didn't it?
Well, they had half a good season.
They saw something in Southampton, which was this irresistible way that they played with the pressing motivation and the ability to coax from players of a lesser quality than Tottenham would have had a better outcome. Then you superimpose that and say, can you do that with a different grade of player? And yes, you can. So the ends justified the outcome. Or the outcome justified the means, right? So then you go to the situation, you say, what's Gareth Southgate's domestic track record? I know, relegate Middlesbrough.
But how far back in time are you going to go if you're going to judge?
Because I'm going to say, what did you do after that? What Gareth Southgate has managed to negotiate for himself, and he's done relatively well, incredibly well, is I'm an FA man, and I'm not going to be any jeopardy to you, and I'm going to do a decent job, and I'm going to make the best of what I've got.
So, Simon, you've got your view on Southgate, Danny's got his view on Southgate, but it's unfair to suggest that Danny is down to cronyism, as you did. The appointment of friends and associates to positions of authority without proper regard to qualifications.
Well,
yes.
I
do that. I do believe that. He knows he can't make a serious. He honestly knows deep down that he can't make a case for these guys to run a top 6 club.
When you're asked the question of getting you given 2 options, I would always go better the devil you know, and I know the capabilities. So,
but you went past that. If we're going to microanalyse what you said,
we did.
You then turned around and said they'll make a great job. They'll do a great job at a big club.
I think they would do a good
Danny,
job.
this is
On what
merciless
basis?
this morning.
Pardon?
Just gone 11:15. It's merciless.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.